a department level director position to act as the sitting member on the board. They're just representing the interests of the city as an owner of one of the units. So I'm not at all concerned about that, but we can have a further discussion about that.
Is there any way
Later,
to
if you'd like.
also get counsel as an option for appointment?
What do you think of that, Isaac?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
Chair Watson asked if it was possible for the council to consider an appointment of an alder, I'm assuming you meant, rather than a department level staff person to sit as a member on the board?
Yeah, I mean, it would be up to the city council how you want to appoint your representation. The suggestion of a director level staff was simply so that there would be flexibility in case someone had to step down. Then there wouldn't need to be agendized a resolution for a replacement, but it certainly is up to the council how you want to decide who is the city's the director appointed by the city.
Yeah, you can structure it any way you want. We just, instead of picking a title, we just put out there as a proposal that you give that authority to the mayor to appoint, because then, like Isaac said, we can replace that person without continually coming back, so that there's always a member on the board. But if that's the desire of the committee to recommend that it be a council appointment, that's fine too.
Alder Killian, do you have any further questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. And yes, thank you for answering my question. I would point out, though, to the city attorney's office and outside counsel that it had been vetted before, that we had the finance director on the WAS board, and as we learned, I think after further scrutiny, that perhaps wasn't the best idea before. So that had also gone through the vetting process, and it's the reason tonight I bring up this concern. I do see some parallels. So that was really my question for the city attorney. I don't want to make you stand up there, Ms. Jacobs.
All right. Well, duly noted. I'd have to go back and look at my notes as to what the precise reasons were for that and who and how vetted that was. I don't have any concerns about this, but I'm happy to discuss it with you further after the meeting or tomorrow.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, about the ownership in terms of the need for this because of the vertical structure, if I understand, the city then maintains ownership of part of that vertical structure, thereby necessitating this. Is that the general idea?
Correct. The arrangement and agreement has been that the city would maintain ownership of the parking lot that's there. So in order to facilitate that continued ownership with ownership of structure above it and beside it, the condo structure is really the only way under Wisconsin law to set this up. Some states have a different platting system, but not Wisconsin. So this is the method we had to use.
Thank you. And as part of that critical vertical makeup, then, what is the revenue, opportunity for the city in this relationship?
I'm afraid I don't quite understand the question.
Well, if we own a piece of the vertical makeup and that's necessary for the development, then what is the benefit of the city in this relationship financially, or are we giving away the farm, so to speak?
I'll try to unpack the question as I understand it. Really, all we're retaining is what we've already owned. The city didn't previously own the building above it, so we're simply, now that the ground and air rights lease has been terminated, a condominium structure needs to be created in order to maintain the ownership, the separate ownership of the building above it. So the vertical structure that we're talking about that the city is retaining ownership for is the existing parking lot structure. So the condo plat is examining where that parking lot structure is and defining our unit as what we already own. As to the development potential above it and in the rest of the block, I'd be happy to have WAS chime in as to, what they're envisioning as far as those development opportunities.
Thank you. Yes, and I mean, this does seem like, I think one of the concerning elements for me, and the other would be the board membership that I mentioned, but the city's retaining ownership, it holds a critical component of this vertical makeup, and thus apparently is getting no real financial benefit from the relationship in the development scheme. If that's the case, then why is the city retaining ownership at all? Is there not a way to dispose of that ownership so we are not holding on to that and apparently enjoying no real financial benefit from that relationship?
Yes, I mean, if the city wishes to sell the parking lot and you have a buyer, if WAS would want to buy it, you could sell it. Again, this condominium structure is simply what the city already agreed to do. So the decision has already been made by council to set it up this way. We're simply effectuating that prior decision.
Thank you. So if the farm has been given away, it was given away at a much earlier date, is what I'm understanding from your response, and I didn't support any of those related resolutions that went through council, but I think that answers it for me. Given that background and the current situation, I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Killian. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I do support this. I think that it outlines part and parcel who owns what. I think the city has to be able to manage and control its own assets, which is the ramp. The city has not made a decision that it wants to not be in the ramp business anymore, and so as long as we own it, we need a seat at that table. So this arrangement creates the legal structure by which we can manage what we own. I think that as far as vetting, we need to make a decision. We either trust our legal team or we don't. That prior arrangement, when WAS first formed, was more about having a voice in the room and a seat at the table because everything was in its infancy than it was about anybody gaining or managing other people's interests. So, whether or not we like that old agreement, I think this one really does get us where we need to go. I think as far as the city's representation on the board, I think that we do need to make sure that whoever sits on that board, that there's some continuity and that there's institutional knowledge in the operation of said facilities in play in that board seat, because I think if we make that person a public official, we not only introduce politics into the mix, but we also then, none of us are authorities on parking lot management or city infrastructure. So, I think that some continuity there where the representative on the board can't just disappear in an election or lack the experience necessary to manage the asset. I think it's important that whoever sits on that board has the right knowledge base. So I think we should move forward, but make sure that the people around the table are the right people. Thank you.
And maybe we can have some oversight just by attending the meetings. We don't necessarily have to have an active voice. I mean, because we can attend all public meetings and have an active voice as council members. So I get what you're saying about having that continuity. It's just that, I guess, oversight that I sort of agree. I think it's nice to have that, finger on the pulse to make sure that we're seeing what's happening. So is there a motion to approve? Oh, yeah, and then we got a second. So any other questions or discussions? All right, so all of those in favor say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right, so it passes 4-1. We're going to number 5, update on Macandon Ventures LLC development agreement for Athletic Park. Randy.
Yeah, and I had a memo in the packet, and this really covers the usage agreement with Athletic Park as well as some different things that are going on. In that memo, I talked about some needed updates for Athletic Park usage agreement, specifically talking about creating additional parking, which is in that use agreement the city hasn't satisfied at this point. We plan to bring something forward to the committee in early 2023 on that. either through an amended development agreement or amended use agreement, kind of depending on how we work everything else out with the changes at the field. I also know that Mr. Mark McDonald, who's here tonight, is working on a plan to install AstroTurf in the infield sections of Athletic Park. Along with that, he has proposed bringing a college softball or college summer softball team to Wausau, similar to the Woodchucks, and looking to have that in place by the summer of 2024. The Parks and Recreation Committee, which I know some of you sit on, met last night and recommended moving forward with the plan for AstroTurf, which will be moving on to council later this month.
And I think it was a 4-0 vote for AstroTurf. I think there was some hesitancy from some of the members just about the concept of AstroTurf, but I have to agree. I think softball, I love fast pitch softball.
Yeah.
I used to play it myself, so it would be really exciting to see that come to Wausau. But I guess first, maybe do we have a motion, and then we can have a second?
No need
and
for a
then
motion.
No
It's
motion?
Yeah, we just have an update here tonight just to let you know what's going on, and then we'll be bringing forward that future
Okay.
amendment.
So then maybe we can have some discussion. So Alder Rasmussen?
Just a question. So with regard to adding additional activity at Athletic Park, I know that it sounds like the softball games would take place during the Woodchuck season when the Chucks are away. Knowing now that there are other current long-term users of Athletic Park that use the park when the Woodchucks are away, when this team is added, what happens to the American Legion baseball season? Will there still be enough schedule space for them to play their season with Athletic Park as their home field?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Jamie and I have talked that over, and the added benefit of turf is that it turns over real quick.
Okay.
And it doesn't wear out, and you don't need rest days, and
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of extra benefits with it. It's not just for softball.
Okay,
It's
just
not-
so that there's enough, knowing that Legion and Junior Legion have both used that complex for a long time as their home. I would hate for them to get edged out. So as long as there's room for everyone, I certainly am supportive of that. With regard to the parking agreement that everyone is still working on, I'll let you know that I reached out to Liz Brodeck today. I've not heard back from her yet, but it's come to my attention that not only the county materials property, but the Wilson Hurd property and the adjacent lot behind it where Woodchucks fans had parked for years, has perhaps come under new ownership, and I've asked her to survey the possibilities of working with that new owner to secure that Wilson Hurd lot behind there on the south side for Woodchuck Stadium parking like it's always been. Users are used to parking there. There had been some concerns in the past that that land was previously occupied by some sort of city facility anyway, that presented potentially some environmental concern, which could be rectified by the parking surface. So I've asked her to start work with the new owner right away to try to fulfill this agreement that way. So hopefully those negotiations will commence, but we do not want to lose that opportunity. I don't care what else they have going on, but I want to see that option thoroughly talked about, so.
And I think if you look at the, to your first point, if you look at the Park and Rec packet from last night, there was a string of emails that Jamie put in there about all of the users of Athletic Park and their support of AstroTurf. So lots of the users that do.
I know
use
there
it.
was some support for the fast cycle as far as eliminating rainouts and whatnot,
Yep.
so I'm not opposed to the turf. I think that if everyone can make it work and all of the users, as long as there's room for everyone, I'm fine with that. The park committee will manage that anyway. That's really not our purpose here, but, fulfilling the parking arrangement with Athletic Park is our job.
Right.
So that job, I think, can be achieved sooner than later if we have the right talks with the right people.
Sweet.
So, thank you.
Alder Lukens.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments. Yes, I am uncomfortable with AstroTurf, artificial turf, all of the above. There are municipalities that are banning artificial turf because of the environmental issues, the health issues, whether it's AstroTurf, artificial turf, whatever, it's made with plastics, microplastics. There is not, to my knowledge, yet any specific way to recycle it, maybe repurpose it, but it does get hot. In summer, it gets extremely hot. And there are a whole number of concerns. So I really don't want to, I'm not on board for, I know schools are putting it in. I also know injury rates are higher. There's a lot of data. So I know the trend is to jump on board and just move to artificial turf cross country. And I also think, greenhouse gases and things like that are things that we need to be concerned about. So I hesitantly did vote yes last night because I do know that it will come up for further discussions. So I just wanted to state that it was hesitantly, not that I don't want to see this happen, the softball league, because I'm very much in favor of that. But I would like to see, our community also, just to have some discussions about environmental impacts of things, because it does impact us. So, and I know this isn't the whole field, so I understand that too. But I just wanted to state why.
One thing in
Thank you.
in discussion last night, we talked a bit about PFAS, and we're able to get a certified letter from our manufacturer that they do not bring any PFAS into the manufacturing process or the installation process. Now, they won't say that there's no PFAS at the site, because the first time you get rain, you're going to have PFAS at the site. And so, it is it's the good stuff, AstroTurf. It's not field turf. And so because of that, I think it's also, it's a realization of where we live and the climate we live in and everything like that. And Athletic Park is, I'm very proud of it. It's, we've worked on it for 12 years, and Lisa, you're one of the few people in the room that have been with me through the whole process. But I think we've created a unique and interesting asset. It's just unfortunate it only gets used 36 nights a year, and then a little bit for the American Legion. So this will get more use out of it, and I think it'll have value for the community. I think being on the forefront of women's collegiate sports will also say a lot about Wausau, especially when the games are broadcast on ESPN, because even the Woodchuck games are on ESPN right now. And I'm, as a father of two strong, independent young women, I'm proud to be doing that. Yeah.
So thank you. I think at this point it's just an update. So I think when
there's a few things, one thing we got to make sure we understand here, because my lawyer's back there. Okay. The development agreement is not with Macandon Ventures. Okay. My office building out there where the Woodchucks is, and that's something we worked on in the past, that was Macandon Ventures. This is with Wisconsin College Baseball, so there's two LLCs involved. So you want to make sure that maybe the notes note that. And I don't know. I mean, I had prepared some comments. I didn't know how much discussion you want, but this is something that's been going on for 12 years. And the parking challenges out at Athletic Park, and I don't know how much knowledge is out there. And for me, it was important. I mean, I'm not going to go ahead with the softball and the turf unless I can get a recommitment from the city on the 2020 development agreement.
And I think that'll be an upcoming discussion point. So, and I appreciate your feedback when we get that part, when we actually can take some action instead of just an update. So thank you so much for being here today.
Okay.
I appreciate that. So for number 6, update on River Life Wausau LLC development agreement for River Life condo project. Randy.
Yeah, so just a quick update, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Our council sent a letter stating the developer is in default as the developer failed to satisfy the closing conditions by November 1st as required in that development agreement. Per the agreement, the developer had 30 days from the date of that November 2nd letter to cure the default. Per the city council's the deadline for that period ended on December 2nd, and the developer has failed to cure. Staff is recommending we convene into closed session at this point to have a discussion on any further action that we wish to take.
All right, so I would like to move on to number 7, the closed session motion. Alder Rasmussen. Oh, Alder Lukens.
So I'm going to try this. Okay. So I move that we enter into closed session pursuant to 19.85 sub 1 sub G of the Wisconsin statutes for conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, relating to legal options and strategy to be adopted by body pursuant to notice of default for uncured violations of the development agreement with River Life Condos LLC, including termination.
Do I have a second? Okay, Alder Rasmussen, let's take a roll call vote. Alder Killian,
Aye.
Alder Lukens,
Aye.
Alder Hanky,
Aye.
Alder Rasmussen.
Aye.
And myself, I say aye. So we will reconvene into open session if we need to take any action.